We are in the Senate chamber of the capital of the state of Georgia. Now, in this place, bills are introduced, they're debated, they're dissected, ultimately with the express purpose of turning them into laws that will protect the citizens of our great state here in Georgia. And of course, also protecting our four-legged family friends. Well, I just happen to be sitting here with one of these individuals who's dedicated her life to public service, and that is the esteemed Senator Kay Kirkpatrick. In the words of the remarkable Claudine Wilkins, Senator Kirkpatrick is a beacon of light and hope with regards to animal welfare and safety. Senator Kirkpatrick knows something about the sanctity of life and its preservation. She began her career dedicated and enveloped with the Hippocratic Oath. Simply said, to do no harm. Senator Kirkpatrick, welcome, and thank you for joining us. It's truly a pleasure to be here with you. I'm honored, I really am.
Delighted to be with you.
Well, you know, Senator Kirkpatrick, I'm going to come right out of the gate here. You started your career as a doctor, as a clinician.
Correct.
And somehow you ended up here. And if I could be so bold as to say, this place, it can be a bloodbath in terms of debate, in terms of emotion and passion. How the heck did you end up here?
Well, let me just say that this is not what I thought I'd be doing during my retirement from healthcare. And I had practiced hand surgery for about 30 years and decided to retire. And then the senator in my district decided that he was going to run for Congress, and people started calling me and saying, hey, you've got some leadership background, maybe you should run for this seat. And I didn't really know what I was getting into, but sounded like we needed more doctors down here, so I raised my hand and ran in 2017, immediately upon my retirement, and was able to win the seat. Ran again next year, won the seat again. And so I'm fairly new to the Senate, but the first thing I noticed is that it's not quite as positive as my previous job, where if people don't like their surgeon, they just go somewhere else. But down here, people are not shy about giving you their opinion, and not always in a very nice way.
So there's no Yelp reviews down here. It's directly to you face to face.
Exactly.
Well, can we talk a little bit about your platform, your legislative platform, and particularly involving animals and animal welfare?
Sure. I work a lot on healthcare, but I'm also on some committees that have to do with public safety, and also on the Commission on Family Violence. And I ended up on a study committee my first summer down here that was related to service animals and the difference between service animals and emotional support animals. And during that conversation, the reason I got tagged for that is because I have a therapy dog, and we realized that more education was needed about that. So we've been working on that ever since. And then this last session, I had a bill that was basically a Good Samaritan type of bill, giving immunity to people who rescued an animal from a hot car. And that bill did not pass, sadly, but it did raise some awareness about the issue and what the problem is. So I work on issues related to domestic violence, elder abuse, animal cruelty, healthcare.
And they're all connected, right? There's a connection.
There's a huge amount of overlap between people who are cruel to animals and are cruel to other people. So we are fighting that battle in Georgia against domestic abuse, gangs, trafficking, and so on. And animal issues fit right into that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And these are some of your aspirations to continue this particular work.
Sure.
Absolutely. Can we talk a little bit about Dobie?
Yeah, Dobie's my therapy dog.
Mm-hmm.
He's a golden doodle. And we, for several years, participated with Happy Tails Pet Therapy, which is based right here in Atlanta. And we visited the Ronald McDonald House. I was the team leader of that team. We had 5 dogs a cat and a rabbit on my team. And Dobie is just sort of like a big rug. He's very calm, and people just like to pet him. And as you know, the Ronald McDonald House, the families there are sometimes far from home for months while their kids are in therapy or in the newborn ICU or something like that. And they miss their pets from home, and it's just a positive thing for not only the families and the kids, but also the team. So my dog loved going to do therapy. When I put his Happy Tails bandana on, he knew where he was going, and he really, we got as much out of it as the people that we were trying to serve. He's now elderly, and golden doodles don't live forever, but he's a senior, and we're trying to help him as best we can get through that. I have another dog that is not therapy dog material. I call her my anti-therapy dog. Someday I hope to have another therapy dog who's got the right personality to be around lots of different kinds of people.
How did you get involved with that program?
Well, from the time that we got Dobie as a puppy, we knew that his personality was such that he was so calm that he would do really great with being I guess you'd call it an emotional support animal, but therapy animals, it's not so much about obedience training or what breed the animal is, it's more about their personality. And I was really busy being a surgeon and didn't have time to get involved with the program for several years during his younger years, but it has really made a big impact. We feel like we're doing something good, and I'll do it again.
That's great. What are some of your aspirations for this upcoming session?
Well, right now I'm trying to get my bills together, and there are a number of things I'm working on. Some are healthcare related, some are public safety related, but I'm working on one animal bill with the Department of Agriculture. And one of the things that comes into play with animal legislation is there's sometimes a division between the legislators from the metropolitan areas and the legislators from the rural areas, from agriculture and so on. So my idea was, let's see if we can work together on a bill. So we're working on a bill that addresses some of the issues that we've seen with the larger puppy breeders. And everything down here happens a little at a time. So we're not looking to blow up the whole system that we have and start over. We're looking to make positive change a little at a time. And so I'm working closely with the Department of Agriculture to better define the licensure requirements for the large puppy breeders. And they simultaneously are working on, a little at a time, changing rules and regulations. And so I have to give Claudine credit. She's been all over this and has been very encouraging. But one thing I learned from seeing the puppy mill bill that was defeated 2 sessions ago, from seeing that operate, is that things work a lot better if you can get people working together as opposed to having a big fight. And the puppy mill bill it brought some things into play that you might not think of. Fortunately, animal issues are not partisan by and large, but there are some other divisions between rural and metro, between local control and state. In this particular bill, there was a weird coalition that formed between animal people and the Faith and Freedom Coalition, who wanted local control of whether they had vape shops in their district or whatever, and then the cancer people who wanted local control of tobacco products. And those are not people that would normally be playing together, but that happens all the time down here. Coalitions form, you're with somebody on one thing, you're not with them on something else, and so it's very interesting. But it's challenging to get bills passed, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, absolutely. Our founding fathers made it that way, from what I understand.
They did, because bad legislation can cause a lot of damage, and that's why we have the checks and balances that we do.
How did you get involved with Claudine Wilkins? How did you connect with her?
I think I met Claudine during the course of that study committee. on service animals. And after that committee had concluded and we had decided that it wasn't the right time for legislation on that issue because there was so much confusion about the definitions really and the conflicts in the law between the ADA, the Air Carrier Act, the Fair Housing Act, that we needed to do some education. So Claudine and I and Deborah Berger and Bill Gorin, who's a disability lawyer, Deborah's with the Humane Society, and Dawn Alford, who sadly isn't with us anymore, but she was involved with the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities. And so we got in a room and developed an educational piece that can be widely distributed, really explaining in a simple way what the law says.
Can we backtrack here for a second and talk a little bit about the Good Samaritan bill that you tried to get passed? Can we talk about your inspiration behind that bill and the frustrations that you found with regards to the roadblocks that you experienced?
Yeah, that started because in my county, in Cobb County, we had a death of a toddler that got national news in a hot car, and the trial and all of that was very painful for everyone. And after that all came about, it came to my attention that animals in hot cars are at equally high risk. And it's not that cool here in the summer, and people don't know that if it's 80 degrees outside, it might be 120 degrees in the car. And so the more I started hearing about this and seeing that other states were legislating this, I thought it would be good for Georgia to protect people who rescue animals in the same way as someone who would rescue a child from a hot car. There was another bill that one of my fellow senators had that gave immunity to law enforcement who would break a window to rescue an animal. But honestly, I think they already have blanket immunity from a lot of things, so I'm not sure that bill did anything. But interestingly, the hot car bill sailed through the Senate, had absolutely no problems. It got over to the House Judiciary Committee. They wanted to rewrite it. That was fine. And then it got to the House floor, and some of the rural legislators vocally opposed it because they were worried about their hunting dogs and this and that, and it just became a...
They were worried about their hunting dogs being stolen?
Yeah. So it became a train wreck, and there was nothing I could do on the House side. I can't stand up and speak in the House. And so that bill went down. But the good thing that happened was I got a lot of media attention on that issue. I had an interview with the Weather Channel, for example, because they talk about a lot of heat-related issues. And I think people were paying attention to that. I got a lot of emails about it, and people were very supportive. And so what I hope, and I think actually is true, is that we were able to raise awareness of the issue and maybe get people to think before they take their animal with them if they're going on a bunch of errands, if they're going to leave the animal in the car. So even though the bill failed, I think it did some good, and it lost badly enough in the House that I probably won't bring it back this year because I'm going to work on other things this year. But there's a lot we can do on animal welfare, and if I see an animal in distress in a hot car, I'm just going to break the window. So immunity or no immunity, and just let the insurance companies fight about it later. But I think a lot of people now know what the risk is and what they should do.
So you really, as a lawmaker, you're not just a lawmaker. In many ways, you're an educator as well. You're bringing awareness to these kind of issues. Even if your law doesn't get passed, there's still a positive result.
I think so, and a lot of things are a multi-year issue down here, and that's what I was trying to explain about the service animal thing. More education needs to happen before anything turns into law, because there are lots of downstream consequences of anything we pass, and they're not always things you think about ahead of time. And so I think education is an important part of what we do down here. sadly, what you mostly see in the media is the things that are very contentious. And that's what sells papers and gets people to turn on their TV, right?
Exactly.
But we pass a lot of bills that are either unanimous or have bipartisan support. And really, I don't think people really understand that a lot of what we do down here is not controversial. It's trying to steadily make things better. And then there's 25% of the issues that are either down party lines, or there are people who are standing outside protesting or whatever. And those are the things that really get the attention of the public.
Sure. As you said, those are the things that sell.
Right.
You know, people want to see conflict.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, are there? And forgive me for my ignorance. Is there a dog day here at the state capitol?
No, there are animal days. There are advocacy days for people that are in the animal world. Mm-hmm. And the message that I try to give to the animal folks, and they honored me last year as the Humane Legislator of the Year. But
what a great honor.
So that was
what a fabulous honor.
That was really nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The message, though, is that there are a lot of different people with a lot of different issues related to animals, or anything else for that matter, and presenting a unified voice and understanding that you can't change culture overnight is really important. And especially legislators we're all citizen legislators, so we're here for 3 months and then people go back to their day job for 9 months. Mm-hmm. And I can work pretty full time on this because I retired from my day job. But nobody's an expert on everything. So I'm a go-to person on healthcare, but I don't know a whole lot about banking, for example, or some certain tax issues.
And that's when you have to build those coalitions as a lawmaker.
Right. So I have my go-to people on various issues, and I hope that I'm a go-to person on not just healthcare, but on animal and also human services mm-hmm. types of issues. And so you have to develop a level of trust with people, and you're not going to always be on the same page with everyone, and those things change depending on what the issue is, and that's kind of how it works down here.
So what about having dog days under the dome?
They don't let animals in here unless they're service animals.
Gotcha, I understand.
And there are a lot of rules around here, but we also don't allow singing in the Senate chamber, which is strange. There are lots
You're kidding me.
No
singing.
No singing. There are lots of traditions. People who are not senators can't walk down the middle aisle when we're in session. They have to go around the side. Uh-huh. I don't know why. Somebody decided that 150 years ago, and it's been like that ever since. So there are lots of traditions. I think this is a beautiful room. The furniture in here is original and has been here for a very long time. And so there is a certain amount of respect that has to be paid
and
to
decorum,
that.
absolutely.
And decorum. Sometimes I think we're a little heavy on the decorum, but and if you have been down here during the session, you know that there's a ton of paper down here. And it makes me crazy because that's a lot of wasted stuff. So near the end of the session, there will be staff members out in the hallway with stacks and stacks of different colors of paper. Well, I'd rather look at the bills on my iPad, to be honest, or on a laptop. And the last day of the session is called Sine Die, day 40. At midnight, about 11, people start tearing up all the pieces of paper that they don't need anymore, which is almost everything by then. And when the president of the Senate says, "Sine die, we're adjourned," everybody throws the pieces of paper up in the air, and it's a big deal, and it's really crowded in here, and there are people up in the gallery.
Like a ticker tape parade.
It is. And it is something to celebrate being done with the session, because usually by the end of it, people are pretty exhausted because we start early, and near you get to the end of the session, you work really late. And so that's something to see. If you've never seen Sine Die, it's worth coming down to see that.
Yeah, no, I have. I worked in the House chamber for a legislative session?
Another tradition is that we don't call people by their names in here. So if I'm recognized to make a comment from my desk or from the front, I'm the senator from the 32nd, or I'm the senator from Cobb. I'm not Senator Kirkpatrick. Nobody says your name. And there's also something that...
Should I have introduced you as the senator from the 32nd?
It's fine because we're not in session.
Okay.
But the other thing is, when you first present your first bill, there's hazing. And so you'll stand down there, present your bill in the well, that's the well, and people will start asking you ridiculous questions if it's your first bill. And in fact, when that person goes down to present, people start saying, first bill, first bill. And so they'll ask you, they'll pick an obscure line out of your bill and ask you, there's standard language in the bills. The last line always says, and all conflicting acts shall be repealed. Somebody asked me, Senator, what are the conflicting acts that would be repealed? There's one of our senators from up near Chickamauga who always asks about moral turpitude, because moral turpitude's in a lot of bills. And so there's this whole, it's kind of fun, and it's all,
and that's
everybody
gotta be a
laughs.
tradition, right?
It is a
long
tradition. It is a tradition, and there are lots of other traditions. The press.
Are there secret ones that you can't talk about?
I don't think so. Maybe I don't know about them.
They're secret.
You're right, exactly. But interestingly, this chamber is only 1/3 the size of the House chamber because there are 3 times as many representatives as there are senators. And it's a little bit of the Wild West in the House. It's supposed to be a little more deliberative over here.
Sure.
But by and large, I think I have, and most of us have, very collegial relationships, and we get along just fine, even when we disagree. And I think that's really important, to be able to have a civil conversation with people that you don't agree with. They're still human beings and deserve to be treated with respect. And so I try to operate that way, and I think most people do. Things can get a little heated sometimes, a little passionate, but underneath all of that, if there's respect for other people, you can still make progress, and you don't have to blow up a relationship over a bill.
Ultimately, we're all connected, and we're all children of God, and we all want the same things: to be loved, to be safe, and to be resourced. And I'll just say this much, Senator, it was truly a pleasure hanging out with you. It really was. I'm honored and flattered to be in your presence. And the fact is, this world would be a much better place if there were more individuals like yourself that has dedicated themselves to the sanctity of the well-being of all living creatures. I applaud you, seriously.
Well, thank you. It's not the easiest thing I've ever done, and I will say that I'm not really used to the negativity, not among my colleagues, but sometimes from the public and from people who are advocating for various things. But again, I think treating people the way that you want to be treated is very important, and I think we're better at that at the state level than our federal partners are sometimes. But that's it's a really hard job. They don't pay us much, part-time, right? So it's hard for people to make that sacrifice, especially if you're working full-time. But I think almost everybody down here is here to make a difference, and for whatever their view is of that. So it is truly a service opportunity, and I like service opportunities, so that's why I'm here.
All right, well, great. Well, once again, folks, we've been here in the Senate chamber with the senator from the 32nd District, right? Is that correct?
That's it.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Pet overpopulation is a national problem. Georgia has some of the highest euthanasia rates in the country, with an area the size of Maryland without basics like animal control, rescues, shelters, or even veterinarians. The Georgia Pet Foundation provides statewide spay-neuter grants to organizations to help decrease pet overpopulation. Do your part to help. Purchase a Georgia Pet Foundation spay-neuter tag through your local tag office, with proceeds going to support spay-neuter efforts in Georgia. Buy a tag, save a life.